Welcome to At His Feet podcast. This one is the biblical doctrine. As we always say, we also have the steadfast pursuit segment, which is our youth-led segment. So this one, we discuss the Bible doctrines, and then you get into the youth conversation. They discuss matters that concerns the young people today. Of course, there are many. So we are grateful. We began the concept of the doctrine of sin. And last week, we were discussing the origin of sin. Like sin imeingia duniani. And we are privileged to still have with us our guest, Wycliffe Omondi. Please assume I've not called you. You are going to introduce yourself. So let me give Wycliffe the opportunity to introduce himself. Just tell us what he's doing. And then we'll get into this. We are talking today about the extent of sin.
Thank you so much, Rev, and thank you for having me. As you've rightly stated, my name is Wycliffe Omondi. I'm privileged to work with Rev at the International Leadership University. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students there in charge of chaplaincy services. So basically, running the chaplaincy department at the university. So yes, I'm glad that you've had me back again in today's session as we look at the extent of sin. I'm looking forward to that conversation.
They always say when you invite someone back, you did some very good job.
So thank you for affirming that.
Now, there are some people who don't know what, because we are talking about the extent of sin today.
Yes.
There are people who don't know what International Leadership University really stands for. And I think in relation to the extent of sin, what is it that International Leadership University is trying to cure in the society?
I think what we stand for as a university is basically integrity.
Integrity.
We do understand as a university that there's a problem in the heart of our society, which is basically lack of integrity.
Okay.
We have people with dealings, with opportunities, but then they will still lack integrity in those privileges that they have been assigned or they have been given, whether you are leading yourself or whether you are leading people. And that's what we stand for. So our business is developing leaders of integrity at the university.
Yeah, I really wanted that to come because we are talking about the extent of sin. So maybe looking at that is critical. So, Wycliffe, to what extent is sin?
That's I don't know how to put that question. Yeah. But it's a very good question, especially building on what we had discussed last week on the origin of sin. When you look at the extent of sin, of course, we had an advantage of seeing the origin of sin and just appreciating that sin started in the Garden of Eden through rebellion of one man. I think the extent of sin, we can look at it in one, how it has spread, and two, how it has eaten the creation of God. I think those are the two main things that you can look at.
How it has spread.
And
how it has
gone deep. How it has eaten the creation.
Like the eaten concept.
Yes.
Let me hear.
Let me start with the eaten because now you like that part.
Yes, the eating part.
One of the most feared disease is called is cancer. That's the most feared disease. Right. The reason why it's feared is how it spread, how the cancer cell, they spread very fast and just they kill you. That is the most feared disease. And sin is like that. It eats you up. But there's something else. Medics do not see cancer as a top disease that kills compared to high blood pressure.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I can be with you here. I can't tell. If you have cancer, I can tell, maybe from physical outlook and all that. But the other one, I can't tell. You only see somebody going down, and of course, what happens within a matter of no time. If he has not been attended to, he just goes, or she just goes. And sometimes that's how sin is hidden in us. And that's what I was saying, how it eats us up. And then it keeps growing. It keeps growing and thriving in itself. John Stott, I don't know whether you've read some of his books. John Stott wrote
part of my favorite books that I read.
I see. There's one book that he has written, and there's one phrase that he puts, and he says that sin is like fungi. You remember those fungi and algae and all those things?
I did a little.
And now fungi there's something that happens with fungi. And so John Stott likens sin to fungi. He says that sin is like fungi. It thrives in darkness.
Hey.
So you can't see it, but it thrives. It grows. And
So
that's
sin is like fungi.
Yeah.
It thrives in darkness.
In darkness. Yeah, or in secrecy.
In secrecy.
Yeah. So basically that is how, so if you're looking at the extent, that's why I was saying that how deep it has eaten, but also how it spreads.
Okay.
So of course we'll get back to that later on. But let me go back again to the part of to how it has spread. How it has spread, you must appreciate that by sin entering the world through one man, through one man, because we are all coming from the same, that humanity, that humankind race of Adam, we are all sinful by virtue of that. So if to see how many, the population of the world that is sinful, we cannot say like, you remember the way we are giving the numbers for COVID-19. Oh, we have 15 new COVID, we have 30
Tomorrow
new, we have 50 tomorrow, we have 100 tomorrow. No, with sin, it is all humanity, born and unborn.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Born and unborn. Why? Because of the inherited sin.
So the moment one person is born,
He is sinful or she's
the
sinful.
number of sin.
Yes, that's the extent of sin.
Okay.
You count. You born. You give. You get a child.
Yes.
You count him as a next sinner.
The next sinner.
That's a new sinner we are having.
Wow. Okay.
And you remember even last time when you were talking about the origin of sin,
Yes.
we stated that all these other things that you are seeing outwardly, they're just symptoms. I could put it like symptoms of sin, because the problem is the natural sin that we've inherited from Adam, the natural sin there that we do have in us. The sinful nature that we do have, all human race is sinners having that sinful nature. It is deeply ingrained in us. Yeah. So a child is born, and I know we call them, we've been given bouncing baby boy.
Bouncing
We have
baby boy.
angel. I've held angel in my hand. No, that's not an
yes.
angel.
Yes.
It's just a little sinner.
So okay.
Yes.
I need to retract what I said when I got my firstborn.
Yes, those are little sinners. If you want to know, they are
My
little
little
sinners.
angel.
Unless it pleases God to draw these sinners to himself, they will actually still languish and incline towards sin. And that's an excellent, that's how sin has spread to all human race by virtue of Adam sinning.
Well, I think you've mentioned some very critical aspects in your conversation. You mentioned cancer. You mentioned fungi. You mentioned hypertension.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to that. And you mentioned that is the way sin spreads. And honestly, I've never thought of that. I've never thought of, sin can spread like cancer, which is visible. We see you're just a bad person.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can also be like hypertension that you can't see outwardly. But then it just kills you instantly through cardiac arrest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you mentioned the bit of like a fungi, thriving in
It just
darkness.
thrives in darkness. Yeah.
That's the reason why many sins happen in darkness.
Could be those and perhaps then the allegory in John 1 that light comes but still darkness don't perceive it. But anyway, that's a different one. I think it is important for us to see if we're looking at cancer or just how it spreads. I think it's important for us to see what sin kills in us, or what the implication or the impact of sin, because it's important for us to look at it when we're looking at the extent of sin, because we're looking at how deep it has gone. Sin coming to the world has both vertical and horizontal effect.
Right.
When you talk about vertical effect, sin has destroyed the relationship between God and man. And of course, God, from Genesis 3, even after man has sinned, he still pursues to restore that relationship. So sin has destroyed that relationship. It has distorted the image of God in man. It didn't completely destroy. the image of God in man. So, because I understand that you had a session on the doctrine of man and the image of God in man. We are all image bearers, and graciously, sin has not destroyed the image of God in us. It has distorted that image in God in us. That's how deep sin has cut in us. So, or vertically, it has destroyed our relationship and our fellowship with God, and now God is pursuing us to bring us back to His fold in that regard. But then vertically, sin has destroyed our relationship with one another.
Horizontally.
I mean horizontally with one another. I sin against you. I lie against you.
Right.
It has destroyed that element. I kill. You can just see.
Because of politics.
Imagine all of a sudden I just realized that I'm a Luo and this other person is from another community, and you forget that we are all human beings. We are brothers. We've been neighbors here, and I just kill you. And sin has affected that relationship with one another. If you look keenly in the commandments that God has given, in those 10 commandments, we can divide them in two. The first ones, the first 4 sections, God is trying to build that relationship. God is building that relationship with Himself, between man and God, worshiping God and giving us those instructions. The rest of the commandments, it's basically me and you. Not coveting, not killing, not bearing false witness. It's basically now the relationship between me and the other person. So it's the horizontal and the vertical and the horizontal aspect of it. When you talk about, when you even move deeply, sin has destroyed even the relationship in creation, in terms of now it's not just man and man, but also
with creation.
It has affected that relationship with creation. You get back to Genesis again, you see the punishment that is given. The creation now provide, of course, the ground will now provide, what is it called? Thorns and all that. It's just very difficult. We see that happening.
And I know that just too well. I grew up in the village.
You are being pricked by those.
Yes, and we will go taking care of the cows barefoot. So
that's why you say forbearing.
Yes,
because you're going, you just really a real forbearing. You're going barefoot.
Yes,
so you're forbearing. but anyway, that's how deep sin has cut. It has cut our relationship with God, our fellowship with God, our relationship with one another, but also with the creation.
Maybe I want to hear more of that, because now the huge conversation globally right now is on environment.
Yes.
And I think while science is giving answers, I think we have so much to give answers in terms of the doctrines, in terms of the Bible.
Yeah.
What extent has sin contributed to environmental issues today?
If we are to obey God fully, Rev, if we are to obey God fully, especially when He gives us that command of tilling the land, taking care of the command. If we are really to acknowledge that even this earth and the world belongs to God, then we could take care of this world, being stewards of this world that God has given us, of this earth that God has given us. But because of our rebellious nature, because of just wicked we are, because of just how broken and sinful we are, greedy we are, we exploit resources here and there, we destroy trees, nature. Nature, it's very central in the place of creation. Because even when you look at, the psalmist, when he says that even nature declares the glory of God, looking at that beautiful tree there and just seeing the tree, the birds chirping, declaring the glory of God. And here we are destroying that.
Right.
And because of our greed, I want to get the whole land for myself.
Sure.
Cut all those things. Because I don't care about you. I don't care about my next neighbor. And largely, I don't care about God who has created them. So I'll destroy, I'll exploit, exploitation is there, degradation is there, and we are not going to take it. Of course, I know science is there. There's that, the secular way of trying to manage things. But I believe if we could go back and just see, we want to take care of God's creation as it is, then this debate or this discussion could be something else. Yeah.
Maybe we need to start a conversation on theology of environment.
Yeah.
because I know there are many people who are looking at bringing solution
Yes.
on environmental issues
Yeah.
through science,
Yeah.
through philosophies, changing the cultural aspects of people. Maybe we can partner together and try to see what are some of the theological issues that are going to help. Because honestly, Wycliffe, like you're saying, just a little understanding that this is God's world, like you're saying, this is God's earth, this is God's creation, and that, my sin or someone's sin may have caused the environment to be, like Roman is saying, then the creation is groaning.
It's groaning.
Waiting.
Yeah, the sons of God to be manifested. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know, maybe just a thought. You are the theologian.
Yeah, it is important. It is important to be discussed from the biblical lenses.
Okay.
I appreciate a lot is happening from the science world and the environmentalist world. A lot is happening. We thank God for that. Again, we cannot remove God even from them.
Right.
Because who gives the knowledge and wisdom? It's still God. It is still God. And He chooses perhaps to give you skill in this area, to give the other person in this area. The only thing that we must be careful is, does it, in whatever we are doing, are we bring ourselves as the object of glory, or is it God Himself, even in the process? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You spoke about my little baby and what I said.
Yes.
What I said about when I got our firstborn, my little angel.
Yes.
And you are publicly on camera telling me that he's a little sinner.
Yes.
Now, that's a very interesting one. There is this gentleman who said that the reason children can't kill is because they are small.
Yes. That same gentleman actually describes these children as, he actually stated that children are vipers in diapers. Hey. And you know how vipers are very...
Children are vipers in diapers.
Yes.
And then he says, the only reason why children cannot kill
you is because they are small.
It's because they are small.
Yes.
And some people think that children are going to heaven direct.
Not. The whole concept of salvation, of course, that's a subject for another day. But it's important for us to understand that the core problem of humanity, the sin as the core problem of humanity, even the child who has been conceived and the child who has been born and the person who is 100 years or something, we are all sinners in God's sight. We are all sinners. And that's why the application of the atonement is for all humanity in light of that. And so even these young children, they are sinners, and no wonder you have a responsibility as a parent to lead them in the way of the Lord. So, and it will please the Lord, or if it pleases the Lord to draw them to Himself and save them, we praise the Lord for that. If He, in His kindness, shows mercy to them, we praise the Lord for that. But we need to understand that they are sinners, so that we don't take away the whole concept of discipleship and evangelism, even from home. Look at the whole issue of households being, the gospel being shared with household. Look at the Acts. The gospel is being shared, and even the whole household is considered saved, and including children in that household, in regards to that. So it is important that nobody is outside of sin.
The extent has touched the
children,
old
the old, the young, women and men alike.
People are really focusing on youth.
Yes.
Youths are the
youth, in fact, and this is now because I'm youthful here, I'll state this on behalf of the youth. Young, old people sometimes say that, hey, vijana wa siku hizi. They're forgetting they're also vijana, and we will be right to say vijana use enzi. Yes, just to counter that. Right. Just to say that, don't see that our sin is new.
So
it's just...
You said you have to tell me that.
Yes, so that when you stand and say vijana wa siku hizi hawaogopi, ni wanatenda dhambi sana, or sometimes the flip side of that is, hey, I wish if I could be living the times of, say, Apostle Paul, then perhaps I could not have sinned as much as today. No, sin is sin.
Sin is sin.
And the extent of it cuts. It just manifests and mutates and all that. But the truth is that sin is sin, and it is actually eating us up slowly by slowly. But of course, the good news is always that the redemption plan is always on motion.
Amen.
From Genesis, when man sinned, to Revelation, the redemption plan is always in motion. That besides or despite the extent how deeply sin has eaten us up, that we are lost, God is still redeeming us. This is how we are very. It has really cut us. That has separated us from God. It has separated us from God. That extent, that division is there.
Huge. The biggest extent.
That schism is there. Look at is it Isaiah 59 that talks about that the hand of the Lord is not too short to save, nor is he as too dull to hear us. But our sin has separated us from God. That's what sin has done to us. It has separated us from God, and that is what happened in Genesis. We see man being banished from the Garden of Eden after sinning. Before then, we see a fellowship. God was coming into the cool of the day. There's that fellowship. But as a result of sin,
in the Bible.
Do you want to say it? How it
the cool of the day.
The cool of the day. God was coming.
This is a very interesting concept.
Yes. And then he just comes and see, wow, they are sinning. They have just fallen. They have just disobeyed and rebelled.
And now they start hiding.
Separation is just there. Man is separated.
Is no longer there.
Yes. And in fact, when you look at Ephesians chapter 2, from verse 12, you see that division.
Yeah.
That division is there. In fact, Paul uses the allegory of a dividing wall. That division, that dividing wall is there. You remember, and I told you that the relationship between man and man is broken, even to the extent that, fast forwarding, that even Jews and the Gentiles could not see eye to eye, Samaritans and the Jews could not see eye to eye. And that relationship is that broken. I can just sin against you and do some things to the extent that, wow, even men themselves, sometimes they even get shocked. Something like this has not happened in Israel. You remember when those people killed that and sliced the body of a human being? Even the sinners are like, wow.
Yeah, this is too sinful.
This is too sinful. That is how deep sin has eaten us up. Yeah.
Now, revisiting that bit of horizontal, the extent of the horizontal, many young people will say, I've met some young people say, Pasi, so long as mimi niko right na God, it doesn't matter what Julius, Wycliffe, it doesn't matter whether they don't like me, whether we don't like each other, so long as mimi niko tu poa na God.
Mimi niko sawa na God, niko sawa. Believers are not to exist in isolation. If you are a believer, you are to exist in the context of a fellowship. And actually, you appreciate that how sin eats us up is that it destroys that fellowship. And going back to the whole aspect of horizontal element of sin, how it affects us, I'll give you an example of David. We know that David is one of the guys that you could even associate as good men in the Bible.
Right.
A man who actually God describes as a man after my own heart. But this man is so broken and so sinful to the extent that, he takes someone's wife, Uriah. He sends him to the battle, goes up, looks and takes Bathsheba. Sexual sin is in there. And then after that, organizes, schemes, and kills the husband. So that now he can take the wife. Until that is brought to him as sin. And realizing how sinful this is. And getting back to the original sense, if I could say that. And he writes Psalm 51. A very common chapter that people like, especially where we like the whole place of a broken heart and a contrite spirit. You will not despise, and we like that part a lot, but we don't read before what happens and what David says. There's some comments that David says there. Yeah. David says that against you, Lord, have I sinned. Against you, O Lord, have I sinned. In humanly speaking, he has sinned against Bathsheba.
Yes.
He has committed adultery there. He has killed Uriah. He has actually broken part of the commandments. Do not kill, do not commit adultery. In fact, this again another subject. If you break one, it's equivalent to breaking all. All commandments. That is how serious it is with God's statutes and God's instructions, because he must have broken 1, 2, 3, 4 until the point where he commits adultery and he kills Uriah. But again, that's interesting to look at. So he says that I have sinned against you, O Lord. Well, what happens? How should we see that as readers, as a reader of the Bible? What that helps us to see is if I'm sinning against you, Rev, I've sinned against God. So I must be conscious to live at peace with you. That is what we are called to do. That as far as it depends on us to be at peaceful with others. Not to commit, when we're committing all these other sins, we're actually committing it against God himself. And so Jesus will actually sum it up to us when he talks about when he summarizes the law. 2 things: love God and love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's that simple in terms of commandment. And so it's interesting for us. We need to see that if I'm sinning against you, if I'm doing something wrong against you, I'm sinning against your maker. That behind you, behind every man being, behind every person else, is actually Christ who has died for him. And so it is important for me to note that if I'm sinning against you, if I'm lying to you, if I'm conspiring to do harm, malice, slander, or all those things, I'm actually not just doing it against you, but I'm doing it against God. Yeah.
And I think, Wycliffe, that's a very powerful place to be, because I look at our world that we are staying in, and we can even customize that conversation to our, context in Kenya, where there's just a lot of hatred, and people hate each other because of tribe.
Yes.
People hate each other because of political persuasion. People hate each other because of gender. Yeah. People hate each other because of age. This whole concept of generations. And we are talking about 70% Christian, or even more, as statistics will put it. And so the question that I'm asking is it that the Christians, who are 75% or so, have forgotten that their relationship with one another reflects the relationship that they have with God? And I like the concept of David and Uriah and Bathsheba. Yeah. And the way David will cry, "To you alone have I sinned."
Yes, yeah.
So that is very interesting in our context. Yeah.
It's true. Of course, we have those statistics, we have those figures, but we are really a crying nation. We are a crying nation because of just how sin is eating us up. Whether it's corruption, whether it's hatred, whether it's just sinful things that we do against one another, and it manifests. It's very clear to our land, and that should be a clarion call, especially to these statistics. That by virtue of you just being called Peter, it doesn't mean that you're a believer. It doesn't. It is not enough.
Saying Luke.
Yes, or I should say Luke. Even for you, actually. Being Luke, yes, your name is even the Bible, but then you are still struggling with sin. I think we should be at a point where we see how is our relationship first with God. Right? Do I acknowledge the sin that is eating me up as an individual first, and do I acknowledge that if I'm going to do this against, am I thinking ahead before I do something against my neighbor? Does it glorify God, or does it cause harm to my neighbor, or does it just, serve to hurt my neighbor, whether it's through that malice or those hatred and all those things. And I think that is where Colossians, Paul will warn believers. And he starts Colossians chapter 3 verse 1, and we say that since then you've been raised with Christ, set your hearts therefore on things above, set your eyes on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. And he goes on and he mentions, he helps us to appreciate that relationship that we should be having with one another. He tells us it does 2 things: put on and put off. Put on, clothe ourselves with the righteousness, and he gives us a list of the things that we need to abide with as believers. But then he asks us to put off the sinful nature, and he lists all those things, whether it's anger, rage, malice, slander, all those things that affect relationship with one another. Yeah.
Awesome. I used to have a friend of mine who will pray and ask God to forgive for sins of omission and sins of commission. Talking about the extent of sin. So there are sins that we do. There are sins that we don't do what we ought to be doing. Thank you. I really like the concepts and the way you are building them up weekly. I want you to share your final thoughts on the extent of sin, and maybe there is someone who is watching this podcast today and evaluating their own extent to which sin has eaten them up, and they are hopeless at that point. I know in our next episode we'll be talking about the remedy of sin, but it is important for someone who is just relating with this content. Is there hope, because it has eaten them, and like we are saying, some diseases are so dangerous and sometimes they can lead someone to death. But there is someone who is saying, can I be saved from death of being eaten by this sin?
Maybe my last word to that will be that yes, sin has eaten us up. It has spread to all humanity, but it is also going deep to an individual level, at an individual level. So yes, all humanity is fallen, it's broken. The whole creation has been affected to that regard, but individually it's also going deep and deep and deep. But that's not lost. It's not all lost. I will say, I look forward to the next episode that will be looking at the remedy of sin. I will encourage someone. I will actually encourage you, my viewer, just to help you appreciate that God still has been pursuing us in light of our brokenness and our sinfulness. God has been pursuing us to restore that broken relationship.
Awesome.
God has been pursuing you and I, to restore that relationship to Himself, to one another, and even to the creation.
Awesome.
Yes.
I think that is a very good place to stop. God has been pursuing us so that He can restore this broken relationship. And you can't miss the next episode, because we are talking about the remedy of sin. Until next time, wish you all the best. I hope you have seen the extent of sin in your personal life, in your society, and that you are asking yourself the same question we will be asking in our next episode: what is the remedy? This was at Is Fit Podcast, the Biblical Doctrine segment. We always encourage you also to watch the Street First Pursuit segment, which is our youth-led, for some conversations on young people. Thank you so much, Weekly, for finding time, and I'm looking forward to hosting you once again for the remedy of sin.
Thank you so much, Rev. Thank you for having me.
God bless.
God bless you.
Until next time, see you.